The silence has finally been shattered, and the aftershocks are now reverberating through the thick glass walls of a certain 16-bedroom estate in Montecito. For more than 10 years, Trevor Engelson was the man who knew everything yet chose to say nothing. He lingered like a shadow from a previous chapter, a successful Hollywood producer who exited a marriage not through heartfelt conversations or emotional farewells, but through something far colder. A neatly packaged delivery sent by registered mail. For years, he carried himself as the composed, respectful ex-husband. He moved forward, built a successful production career, created a new family, and stayed completely silent in the media, all while his former wife rose into one of the most recognized and controversial figures in the world. But now it's 2026, and as the saying goes, nothing stays buried forever. It seems Trevor's moment has arrived, and he's not just speaking, he's reportedly coming forward with proof. This goes far beyond ordinary Hollywood drama or a forgotten divorce from the past. What's unfolding looks like a complete unraveling of a carefully crafted narrative. Whispers suggest Trevor hasn't merely confided in someone quietly. He's allegedly preparing to release information that no public relations machine could erase. It's from the instant he decided to share his version of events, the mood behind the gates of Meghan's California residence reportedly shifted from controlled calm to full-blown crisis. The image that has been polished over years of streaming deals, magazine spreads, and high-profile interviews is beginning to fracture, revealing deep, uneven cracks beneath the surface. And perhaps the most unsettling element of all, this isn't coming from critics or tabloids. It's coming from the one person who knew her before any spotlight ever existed. To understand why Trevor stepping forward in 2026 carries so much weight, you have to revisit how their marriage actually ended. Back in 2013, he was caught completely guard. He had stood by Meghan during the difficult years, using his industry ties to help her secure roles and find her footing in a competitive environment. But once Suits gained traction and she experienced a taste of global attention, everything shifted. Picture this. You've spent years married to someone, and while you're in Los Angeles and they're working in Toronto, a FedEx package arrives. Inside, instead of documents or a message, you find your wedding and engagement rings, just a delivery that reduces a marriage to something as disposable as a canceled subscription. That moment marked Trevor's introduction to a completely different version of Meghan. For the next decade, he carried that experience, watching from afar as her story devolved into something entirely new, reshaped to fit a royal narrative. Many have questioned why someone in his position never told his side earlier. The answer is simple. He didn't need to. He was already thriving, building a life with his new wife and their 3 children. But sources suggest that watching his own history rewritten and his role in her journey erased became impossible to ignore. This isn't about reclaiming fame. It's about setting the record straight. And the fact that he has reportedly broken his silence through trusted channels in early 2026 has thrown Meghan into what insiders describe as a state of panic. She believed that chapter of her life was permanently closed, that he would keep those years buried forever. That assumption appears to have been a mistake. Yet the abrupt ending of that marriage may have only been the beginning of something far more calculated already unfolding behind the scenes. For years, a story has circulated quietly among elite social circles. One Meghan has firmly denied it. She once told Oprah and the world that she had little knowledge of the British royal family and didn't even know who Prince Harry was before meeting him. But according to individuals who were part of her life during her marriage to Trevor, the reality may have been far more deliberate. Some claim there was a vision board, not focused on general ambitions or personal growth, but allegedly centered around a very specific goal: Prince Harry himself. The widely told story of 2 people meeting by chance may sound like a perfect Hollywood romance, but the revelations emerging in 2026 suggest something more strategic was at play. Meghan wasn't simply searching for love, she was reportedly seeking a platform that couldn't be taken away. She is said to have studied Harry, almost like preparing for a leading role, understanding his emotional triggers, his vulnerabilities, and his desire for a family. Where others saw a person, she may have seen a position. However, there was one enormous miscalculation, reportedly in the range of $100 million. The assumption, according to these claims, was that a British prince would come with billionaire-level wealth. But the reality was far different, with Harry's finances largely tied to trusts and subject to royal oversight. When that realization set in, the fairy tale met financial reality, and that may explain why in 2026, the Duchess appears focused on selling luxury jams and even dog treats. It's not simply a pastime, it isn't a luxury, it's a requirement for maintaining a lifestyle that the royal finances were never truly able to support. She believed she had secured the ultimate prize, only to realize that royal life comes with limits, budgets, and restrictions, because that were never part of the original vision. When headlines broke in late 2025 about Trevor's alleged memoir deals, the reaction inside the Montecito estate wasn't measured or strategic. By many accounts, it was explosive. Sources and former staff members suggest that behind those private gates, the Duchess didn't just react emotionally, she spiraled into a full-scale crisis. There have long been whispers about a particular section of the house, referred to by some as a rage room, a soundproof space supposedly designed for moments of intense pressure. It's rumored to be where frustration is unleashed physically, with furniture overturned and costly decor destroyed whenever control over the narrative begins to slip. But the real damage goes far beyond shattered objects. It's about strained relationships and exhausted people. By early 2026, staff turnover connected to Archewell and the Montecito residence had reached striking levels. More than 18 senior employees had either resigned or been dismissed since the move to California, forming a pattern that's difficult to overlook. As recently as January 2026, 2 additional high-level figures stepped away, including individuals who had been loyal to the couple from the beginning. These departures came on the heels of a widely discussed Hollywood Reporter article that described the Duchess as a demanding and controlling figure. According to those who worked within the environment, it was a high-pressure atmosphere where even minor missteps could trigger intense confrontations that carried through the halls. Following the news about Trevor, Meghan is said to have directed a heated outburst toward her communications team, accusing them of failing to contain her past. That kind of reaction doesn't suggest confidence. It signals fear that a different version of events might finally come to light. The legal response that followed, cease and desist notices, urgent efforts to impose confidentiality agreements, speaks volumes. When claims are entirely baseless, they're often ignored. Panic, on the other hand, tends to indicate something more substantial behind the scenes. Perhaps the most controversial aspect of what's now being called the Trevor Files centers on a topic that has lingered in online discussions for years but rarely surfaced in mainstream conversation. There are persistent speculations surrounding Trevor's medical history during the marriage, including a procedure he allegedly underwent that could have affected their ability to have children together. If any of these claims were to be verified, they would cast serious doubt on the official narratives surrounding the births of Archie and Lilibet. For years, public debate has circled around theories involving surrogacy and other possibilities. But Trevor is among the very few individuals who would have direct knowledge of that period. Should he possess documented evidence, medical records, or details of fertility challenges that contradict the established story, the consequences would extend far beyond personal reputation. It could raise questions about royal lineage itself. Historically, the palace has avoided addressing such matters directly, reportedly to prevent constitutional complications. But in 2026, with Trevor allegedly preparing to speak, The secrecy surrounding these events is facing renewed scrutiny. Reports suggest that this particular issue is the one Meghan fears most. The potential unraveling of everything she has built. Being labeled opportunistic is one thing. Being accused of a prolonged and fundamental deception involving the royal family is something else entirely. While this looming threat hangs overhead, attention has also been directed at her recent business struggles. By mid-2025, what was intended to be her major return to global branding, American Riviera Orchard had already encountered serious setbacks. After an initial launch that drew criticism for focusing on high-priced jam, the brand soon ran into trademark complications. In early 2026, it was reportedly rebranded as Ever. Meghan described the name as representing continuity, but critics interpreted the move as a rushed attempt to distance herself from the earlier missteps. The rebrand, however, quickly faced its own controversy. Officials from a small Spanish town, Paredes de Macora, pointed out striking similarities between the new logo and their historic coat of arms, both featuring a palm tree framed by two birds. The town's mayor publicly expressed surprise, and there are reports that legal experts are examining whether the design was replicated. These business difficulties have reportedly dealt a significant blow to Meghan's ambitions. She had envisioned herself following in the footsteps of lifestyle icons like Martha Stewart or Gwyneth Paltrow, yet her offerings, from decorative food items to herbal blends, have been criticized as overpriced and lacking originality. From her perspective, however, these failures aren't the result of flawed strategy. In her perspective, none of this is coincidence, calculated interference. To her, the business struggles aren't tied to branding missteps or controversy, but to something far more deliberate. She believes it's sabotage. That brings us to the latest development coming out of the palace. In April 2026, King Charles carried out a widely covered official visit to the United States. For weeks leading up to it, speculation ran high that this might finally open the door for reconciliation. Reports suggested Harry had sent a handwritten letter to his father, expressing a strong desire to meet and introduce the children, but the response from the palace was firm and distant. Officials stated there were no plans for a meeting, emphasizing that the trip was strictly business. According to sources, Meghan interpreted this as a profound betrayal. She has reportedly told those close to her that the timing of Trevor's rumored memoir and the king's refusal to meet cannot be a coincidence. In her view, it's part of a larger effort by the royal institution to undermine her and derail her business ambitions in the United States. She believes her former husband is being used as a tool to prevent her from achieving success on her own terms. This sense of being targeted has been a recurring theme for years, but by 2026, public opinion appears to be shifting. Many are beginning to question the logic behind such claims. Why would a reigning monarch be concerned with a lifestyle brand based in California? The more grounded interpretation is far simpler. The monarchy has moved on. The long-standing tensions are no longer central to their priorities. But Meghan, by contrast, seems unable to let go, repeatedly attributing negative press to institutional interference. While she remains focused on this perceived external battle, the situation at home appears to be evolving in a different direction. As she reacts strongly to the latest controversies, Prince Harry's response has been noticeably more subdued. Those familiar with life at the Montecito estate describe him as unsettled and increasingly uncomfortable with the ongoing drama. By 2026, talk of the couple leading largely separate lives has shifted from speculation to something more observable. They are said to be operating independently in professional settings, attending events and engagements alone rather than presenting a united front. Insiders portray Harry as emotionally drained by the constant public conflicts. Reports suggest he is spending extended periods in separate areas of the home, focusing on personal projects such as the Invictus Games and reconnecting. in some ways with aspects of his former royal identity. There are also claims that he has urged Meghan to stop attributing the Trevor situation to his father, indicating that even his patience may be wearing thin. Observers increasingly describe him as someone beginning to fully grasp the personal cost of the choices he made, leaving behind family, military roles, and country in pursuit of a new path that has been far more turbulent than expected. The distance between them is no longer subtle. It has become noticeable even to their most dedicated supporters. What was once presented as a modern fairy tale has gradually shifted into something more pragmatic, a relationship under visible strain. By 2026, rumors of separation are no longer dismissed as idle gossip. Instead, they are being viewed by many as a natural outcome of a relationship built on a narrative that is now being challenged, particularly by someone who knew her long before the spotlight. One of the most significant missteps Meghan made during her rapid ascent, according to critics, was underestimating Trevor Engelson. When their marriage ended in 2013, there was no expectation that he would ever need to speak publicly. At the time, she was a television actress, not a global figure. As a result, no formal non-disclosure agreement was put in place to restrict him. In today's media environment, that absence is critical. It leaves the door open for him to tell his story without legal barrier. Reports suggest he has already been approached with lucrative offers for a tell-all memoir, potentially worth millions. Unlike past biographies, this one could carry a different weight. Trevor is said to possess direct evidence, emails from the Toronto years, personal photographs from the period surrounding their split, and possibly even sensitive documentation that could reshape public understanding of that time. Her legal team is reportedly scrambling to find ways to prevent such a release, but options appear limited. Trevor's decade-long silence has worked in his favor, building a level of credibility that is difficult to challenge. As one widely shared comment in 2026 put it, he stayed quiet for years despite having every opportunity to speak. If he chooses to do so now, many believe it would only be because the truth is too significant to remain hidden. If a memoir does materialize, it could fundamentally alter how her past is viewed, reducing carefully crafted titles and narratives to little more than distant echoes. To fully grasp the significance of Trevor's silence, you have to go back to the Toronto years, the period when everything was beginning to take shape. Those who knew them then describe a very different version of Meghan. She was an aspiring actress trying to establish herself, navigating a highly competitive industry. Trevor at that time was seen as her strongest supporter, the one who believed in her potential before broader recognition arrived. But according to insiders, once she secured her role on Suits, a noticeable shift began. It wasn't just about gaining visibility. It was about expanding connections and positioning herself within a more influential network. Trevor reportedly observed as her inner circle began to shift. The longtime friends, the ones who had supported her from the start, were gradually pushed aside. In their place came influential Canadian socialites and well-connected figures who offered more than companionship. They provided access to status, to opportunity, to an entirely different world. There are claims that during the final stretch of their marriage, Meghan was spending increasing amounts of time building connections in London rather than staying in Los Angeles. Trevor, by comparison, was left behind, not only in distance, but emotionally as well. He was the one who knew her before the transformation, making him a direct witness to a change that many now believe was far more intentional than it appeared publicly. That's precisely why the idea of a memoir is causing such concern within the Montecito circle. This isn't just secondhand gossip. He potentially holds a detailed timeline of how ambition turned into reality. And what followed, according to those familiar with the situation, could challenge even the most widely accepted version of events. While the situation involving Trevor intensifies, another issue is quietly unfolding: the absence of support from high-profile allies. In the early years of their California chapter, the couple was surrounded by major Hollywood names. Figures like Oprah Winfrey and Serena Williams were seen as part of a strong protective network. But as 2026 progresses, that support appears to have faded significantly. Observers have pointed out the noticeable silence from those who once publicly backed them. When the Ever brand launched earlier this year, there was little to no visible promotion from celebrity circles. No major endorsements, no viral influencer moments, and no public encouragement from previously supportive figures. Sources suggest that Hollywood's elite may simply be fatigued by the ongoing controversies. From their perspective, the couple appears to be in constant conflict, whether with the royal institution, their families, or now their own past. In an industry driven by image and profitability, ongoing drama only works when it adds value. At present, the Sussex brand is increasingly viewed as a risk rather than an asset. As a result, attention has shifted elsewhere, leaving Meghan and Harry more isolated than before, both socially and professionally. And that isolation isn't just symbolic. It's beginning to have real financial implications. This moment represents more than just another fleeting headline. It signals a deeper shift in public perception. For years, Meghan's image was built around the idea of being an outsider finding her voice, a figure navigating adversity. But when someone from her past presents a narrative centered on strategy, calculated decisions, and abrupt departures, that identity begins to unravel. The audience is starting to see a different picture, not of someone reacting to circumstances, but of someone who may have been directing them. In that light, her silence in 2026 doesn't come across as controlled. It raises questions. Legal pushback doesn't necessarily project strength. It can appear reactive. Her rise to prominence was driven by opportunity and charisma, but it was also shaped by a series of reinventions, each one leaving parts of the past behind. From the revolving door of staff to the sudden end of her first marriage, the pattern is becoming harder for observers to ignore. With more individuals rumored to be coming forward, the focus is no longer just on whether her current brand can recover. The bigger question is how much of the story remains untold. Trevor Engelson has reportedly broken his silence, and for the first time, people are paying close attention. For the Duchess of Sussex, this may only be the beginning of a much larger reckoning. Stay tuned, because the voices that were once overlooked are beginning to be heard. This is the story behind the spotlight. And if you want to follow how it unfolds, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because this isn't over yet.